The massive alien ships appeared without warning in Earth's solar system. They came out of the darkness between stars like metal giants awakening from sleep. 12 enormous vessels, each one bigger than any city on Earth, moved slowly toward the blue planet that hung in space like a small jewel. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the largest ship, his forearms crossed behind his back. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights, and his large black eyes watched the small world ahead. He had done this many times before. 43 worlds had fallen to his fleet. 43 different species had begged for mercy when they saw his ships. "Begin the scan," he ordered. His voice was deep and cold. The ship's computers began studying Earth. They looked at the radio signals, the small space stations, the tiny ships that moved between Earth and its moon. Everything they found made Kethvar smile. These humans were so primitive. Their weapons were simple. Their ships were slow and weak. This would be easy. "Sir," one of his officers said, "we have completed our study of their defenses. And they have nothing that can harm us. A few space stations with basic weapons, some small ships with chemical rockets. Their strongest weapons are nuclear missiles that cannot even reach orbit properly." Kethvar nodded. It was always the same. Every species thought they were strong until they met the hegemony. The 12 races that made up their alliance had conquered half the galaxy. They had weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could stop any attack. No primitive species could stand against them. "Open a channel to their planet," he commanded. The main screen lit up, showing Earth floating in space. Kethvar knew that his message would reach every radio and television on the planet. Every human would see his face and hear his words. "People of Earth," he began, his voice carrying across space to the small blue world. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian hegemony. We represent 12 advanced species that rule this part of the galaxy. We have watched your world for many years. On Earth, people stopped what they were doing. In homes and offices, in schools and shops, humans stared at their screens. They saw the alien face looking down at them, and they felt fear creep into their hearts. We have studied your signals," Kethvar continued. "We know about your wars, your weapons, your technology. You are a young species. You have only just learned to leave your planet. You know nothing of the real dangers that exist among the stars." He paused, letting his words sink in. This was always his favorite part. The moment when a species realized how small and helpless they truly were. "We offer you a choice," he said. "You can surrender to us now. You can become part of our empire. We will take control of your world, but we will let you live. You will work for us, serve us, and in return, we will protect you from other threats in the galaxy." The alien admiral touched a control on his chair. The screen changed to show images of other worlds. Beautiful planets with blue skies and green forests. But as the humans watched, they saw what had happened to these places. Cities lay in ruins. Oceans had dried up. The plants were dead and the skies were dark. "These worlds chose to fight us," Kethvar explained. "They thought their weapons could hurt us. They thought they could win. They were wrong. Now these planets are empty. Nothing lives there anymore." The images kept changing. World after world showed the same story. Planets that had once been full of life were now dead rocks floating in space. "You have 72 hours to decide," Kethvar said. "Surrender to us or join these dead worlds. We suggest you choose wisely." The transmission ended. Across Earth, humans stared at blank screens in shocked silence. In the hegemony fleet, the alien crews relaxed. They had done this so many times before. First came the ultimatum. Then came the panic. The primitive species would send desperate messages begging for more time. They would offer anything. Their technology, their resources, their most beautiful members, in exchange for mercy. "How long do you think it will take?" asked Commander Vexta, Kethvar's second in command. Her green skin had patterns that showed her amusement. "The last species took 6 hours before they started begging," Kethvar replied. "These humans seem especially weak. I give them 4 hours before the first plea arrives." But 4 hours passed, and no messages came from Earth. "Perhaps their communication systems are damaged by fear," suggested another officer. "Check their signals," Kethvar ordered. The ship's computers listened to Earth's radio waves. They could hear normal communications. People talking to each other, news broadcasts, even entertainment programs. The humans were acting as if nothing had happened. 8 hours passed. Then 12. Still no response from Earth. This is unusual, Vexta said. Every species responds quickly. They either surrender immediately or start begging for mercy. Kethavar felt a small worry growing in his mind. In 300 years of conquest, he had never seen a species react this way. But he pushed the worry aside. These were just primitive humans. Perhaps they were too shocked to respond properly. 24 hours passed. The hegemony fleet waited, but Earth remained silent. Should we send another message? Asked an officer. No, Kethavar said. Let them have their silence. It will not save them. But deep inside, the alien admiral was starting to feel something he had not felt in a very long time. Uncertainty. The humans were not acting like any species he had conquered before. Every other race had responded with fear, anger, or desperate bargaining. The humans had simply gone quiet. Sir, called the sensor officer, we are detecting some movement in their outer system. What kind of movement? Small ships. They appear to be moving between the asteroids and the gas giant planets, but they are too few and too small to be a threat. Kethavar looked at the display. A few dozen human ships were indeed moving around the solar system. They looked like cargo vessels or research ships, nothing that could threaten his massive fleet. Ignore them, he decided. Frightened animals often run when they see a predator. 48 hours passed. Then 60. Earth continued its strange silence. By the time 70 hours had passed, every alien in the fleet was feeling nervous. This had never happened before. Species were supposed to beg, cry, offer deals, or attack in desperation. They were not supposed to simply ignore the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. 1 hour remains, Vexta announced. Kethavar stared at the small blue planet that hung in space ahead of them. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he wondered if he had made a mistake. But what mistake could there be? His fleet was invincible. His weapons could turn planets to dust. These humans had nothing that could threaten him. Prepare the planet crackers, he ordered finally. If they will not surrender, we will show them what happens to worlds that defy the hegemony. The massive alien ships began charging their most terrible weapons. The guns that could split a planet in half hummed with deadly energy. In 1 hour, Earth would learn what happened to species that refused to kneel before their betters. But as the final minutes ticked away, not one person in the hegemony fleet suspected the truth. The humans were not silent because they were afraid. They were not hiding because they were weak. They were silent because they were ready. The 72nd hour came and went like a whisper in the dark. Admiral Kethavar stood on his bridge watching the countdown reach 0. No message had come from Earth. No desperate plea for mercy. No offer of surrender. The blue planet simply continued spinning in space as if 12 alien warships were not pointing world-ending weapons at it. Time has expired. Sir, announced Lieutenant Zekhor, his voice uncertain. Kethavar felt something cold move through his stomach. In all his years of conquest, this had never happened. Even the most warlike species had sent some kind of response. Threats, bargaining attempts, or final speeches about honor and freedom. The silence from Earth was like nothing he had ever experienced. Are you certain our transmission reached them? He asked. Yes, sir. Our signals were received and broadcast across their entire planet. Every human settlement heard your ultimatum. Then why do they not respond? The question hung in the air like smoke. Around the bridge, alien officers shifted nervously. They were starting to realize that something was very wrong with this conquest. Perhaps, suggested Commander Vexta slowly, they are planning something. What could they plan? Kethavar snapped. Look at their pathetic defenses. A few space stations with primitive weapons. Some mining ships in the asteroid belt. They have nothing that could threaten even our smallest escort vessel. But even as he spoke the words, doubt crept into his mind. The sensor officer had reported more ship movements during the night. Small human vessels had been spotted near Jupiter and Saturn. Others had been seen moving through the asteroid fields. When questioned, the humans had claimed they were routine mining and research missions. Update me on their fleet movements, Kethavar ordered. The main screen changed to show a map of the solar system. Red dots marked where human ships had been detected. There were more than before, but still not many. Perhaps 60 or 70 vessels scattered across the outer planets. These ships, Kethavar said, pointing at the display. What are they doing? Unknown, sir. Our long-range scans show they are moving in organized patterns, but we cannot determine their purpose. Some appear to be mining asteroids. Others are conducting surveys of the gas giant moons. Surveys? Vexta leaned forward. Why would they conduct surveys when their world is about to be destroyed? Nobody had an answer for that question. The hours passed slowly. The hegemony fleet remained in position, weapons charged and ready to fire, but still no word came from Earth. The planet's radio signals continued as normal. Humans went about their daily lives as if nothing had changed. "This is impossible," muttered Chief Psychologist Morden, a member of the hegemony's Science Council. Fear is a universal response among all known species. When faced with overwhelming force, intelligent beings always react with panic, anger, or submission. This silence makes no sense. Kethvar had called the science team to help him understand what was happening. 3 of the galaxy's best experts on alien psychology stood around his command table, looking as confused as he felt. "Perhaps," offered Dr. Yithra, "their minds have simply broken from terror. Some species freeze when faced with impossible situations. For 3 days?" Morden shook his head. "No, this is something else. Look at their communications. They are not frozen in terror. They are functioning normally. They go to work, send messages to each other, even broadcast entertainment programs. It is as if they are completely ignoring us." That thought sent a chill through everyone on the bridge. How could an entire species ignore 12 warships capable of destroying their world? "Sir," called the communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from Earth." Every alien on the bridge turned toward the communication station. Finally, the humans were going to respond. Kethvar felt relief wash over him. This strange situation would finally make sense. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. The display showed a human male in some kind of uniform. He had gray hair and tired eyes. Behind him, other humans worked at control stations. "This is Admiral Chen Wei of the Terran Defense Force," the human said. His voice was calm and steady. "We have received your ultimatum," Kethvar smiled. Now the begging would begin. The human would ask for more time or offer tribute or try to negotiate some kind of deal. "We need more time to consider your offer," Chen continued. There it was. The same thing every species said when they realized they could not win. "How much time do you require?" Kethvar asked. 24 hours should be sufficient. You already had 72 hours. You will have no more time. Surrender now or face destruction." The human admiral looked directly into the camera. His expression did not change. No fear showed in his eyes. No desperation in his voice. "We understand your position," Chen said. 24 hours. The transmission ended. Kethvar stared at the empty screen. Something about that conversation felt wrong. The human had not begged. He had not offered anything. He had simply asked for time as if he had every right to make demands. "Arrogant primitives," Vexta snarled. "They still think they can bargain with us." But Kethvar was not so sure. There had been something in the human's eyes. A look that reminded him of other military commanders he had known. The kind of look that came from confidence, not fear. "Double our sensor sweeps," he ordered. "I want to know what every human ship in this system is doing." The next 24 hours brought more questions instead of answers. Human ships continued moving throughout the outer solar system. They appeared to be following some kind of plan, but the aliens could not figure out what it was. Some vessels were mining asteroids. Others were setting up temporary bases on distant moons. A few were simply moving between locations for no apparent reason. "It makes no sense," reported the sensor chief. "They are acting as if they are preparing for a long-term operation. Why would they mine asteroids when their world is about to be invaded?" Stranger still were the energy readings coming from Earth's moon and Mars. The hegemony's instruments detected massive power sources that had not been there before. When they tried to scan these locations more closely, something blocked their sensors. "Interference?" Kethvar asked. "Unknown, sir. The signals just stop, as if something is absorbing our scans." "Natural phenomena?" "Unlikely. The interference appears to be artificial." Kethvar felt the cold worry in his stomach grow stronger. Primitive species did not have technology that could block hegemony sensors. Such devices required advanced knowledge of quantum mechanics and energy manipulation. 24 hours passed. Admiral Chen appeared on their screens again, looking exactly as calm as before. "Have you reached a decision?" Kethvar demanded. "We have," Chen replied, "and we need to discuss terms." Kethvar's patience finally broke. "There are no terms. Surrender or die." "Everything has terms," Chen said quietly. "Even surrender." The transmission ended again. This time, Kethvar did not hesitate. "Begin charging the planet crackers." If these humans want to play games, we will show them what happens to species that waste our time. But as his ships prepared their most terrible weapons, deep space sensors detected something that made no sense at all. Massive energy signatures were appearing throughout the solar system, dozens of them, then hundreds. What are those readings? Kethavar shouted. The sensor officer's face had turned pale blue with fear. Sir, I think we have a problem. What kind of problem? Ships, sir. Lots of ships. They're everywhere. On the main display, red dots began appearing like stars coming out at night. They surrounded the hegemony fleet from every direction. Above, below, and on all sides, new contacts were appearing on the sensors, but that was impossible. The humans only had a few dozen vessels. The alien fleet had been watching them for days. How many? Kethavar asked, his voice barely a whisper. The sensor officer checked his readings 3 times before answering. 2,000 ships, sir, and more are still appearing. In the space around Earth, something that had been hidden was finally revealing itself, and Admiral Kethavar began to understand that everything he thought he knew about humanity was wrong. The space around the hegemony fleet exploded into light and motion. Where empty darkness had existed moments before, massive human warships now hung in the void like sleeping giants awakening. They appeared from behind asteroids where they should not have been able to hide. They rose from the shadows of planetary rings that could not have concealed vessels so large. They dropped out of faster-than-light jumps with a precision that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. Admiral Kethavar watched his sensor displays with growing horror as the numbers climbed. 2,000 ships became 3,000. 3,000 became 4,000. Each new contact that appeared was larger and more heavily armed than anything in his intelligence reports about human technology. This cannot be real, whispered Commander Vexta. Her green skin had turned pale and the patterns that showed her emotions were flickering with fear. Scan those vessels, Kethavar ordered, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. I want to know what we are looking at. The results that came back made no sense. The human ships were huge. Some were larger than hegemony dreadnoughts. They carried weapons that the fleet's computers could not identify. Their hulls were made from materials that seemed to absorb scanner beams. Most impossible of all, they had appeared without warning from positions where nothing should have been able to hide. How did we not see them? Kethavar demanded. Chief Science Officer Malthek worked frantically at his station, trying to understand what had happened. Sir, it appears they were using some form of advanced stealth technology. Our sensors showed empty space, but something was masking their presence. What kind of stealth technology? Unknown. It is beyond anything in our databases. Our ships cannot even detect the method they used. Kethavar felt his world tilting sideways. The hegemony had the most advanced technology in the known galaxy. 12 species had combined their knowledge to create weapons and defenses that no single world could match. Yet these humans had hidden an entire fleet using methods his people could not even understand. Sir, called the communications officer, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. The main screen activated, showing Admiral Chen Wei again. But this time he was not alone. The human stood on what was clearly the bridge of a massive warship. Behind him, officers worked at stations that looked far more advanced than anything the hegemony had seen in their intelligence about Earth. Admiral Kethavar, Chen said, his voice still calm but now carrying an edge that had not been there before. I believe it is time we had a proper conversation. Kethavar tried to speak but found his throat dry. Around him, his bridge crew stared at the display in shocked silence. The human ships now surrounded them completely. The hegemony fleet that had seemed so powerful when it arrived was now vastly outnumbered. You seem surprised, Chen continued. Did you really think we would not prepare for this day? This is impossible, Kethavar finally managed to say. Your species has barely left your planet. Your technology is primitive. Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Is it? Tell me, Admiral. How long have your people been listening to our radio signals? 150 years. And in all that time, what did you learn about us? Kethavar thought about the reports his intelligence officers had prepared. They had studied human broadcasts for decades. Television shows, radio programs, internet communications. Everything had painted a picture of a young species just beginning to explore space. We learned that you are a primitive civilization with simple technology and basic weapons. You learned what we wanted you to learn, Chen said quietly. The words hit Kethavar like a physical blow. What do you mean? Did you never wonder why a species smart enough to split atoms and build computers would be so careless about broadcasting our capabilities to the galaxy? Did you think we were simply too stupid to consider that hostile aliens might be listening? The terrible truth began to dawn on the alien admiral. You deliberately fed us false information. For over a century, we have known that hostile forces existed in the galaxy. We intercepted your communications decades ago. We studied your conquest patterns. We learned about your weapons, your tactics, your weaknesses. Chen gestured to someone off-screen, and the display split to show technical diagrams. They showed hegemony ships, but the level of detail was impossible. The humans had blueprints of vessels that should have been secret. 47 years ago, you destroyed the Kepler 442 system, Chen continued. One of your damaged ships crashed on an asteroid. You thought it was completely destroyed. You were wrong. The display showed images of wreckage being carefully excavated by human salvage teams, pieces of hegemony technology being loaded onto transport ships. The aliens watching realized with growing horror that humans had been studying their equipment for decades. We reverse-engineered your weapons. We improved on your designs. We spent 50 years building the fleet you see around you, all while making sure you believed we were still primitive. Kethvar's legs felt weak. His species had conquered 43 worlds using superior technology and surprise attacks. Now he was learning that the humans had turned those same advantages against him. The ships you detected in our outer system, Chen said, those were not research vessels. They were warships taking their positions. Every mining operation was actually a battle group moving into strategic locations. While you waited for us to surrender, we were surrounding you. The display changed again, showing a tactical map of the solar system. The human fleet was positioned perfectly. Every escape route was blocked. Every angle of attack was covered. The hegemony ships were trapped in a cage they had not even known was being built around them. You have 1 hour to withdraw from human space, Chen announced. Take your ships and leave our system. Do not return. Kethvar felt anger rising through his shock. This was still just one primitive species. His fleet carried planet-killing weapons. His shields could stop any attack. Even if the humans outnumbered him, quality was more important than quantity. You may have more ships, he snarled, but we have superior firepower. Our weapons can destroy planets. Our shields are impenetrable. Your primitive technology cannot harm us. Chen's expression did not change. Would you like to test that theory? Sir, interrupted the tactical officer urgently. The human ships are targeting us. On the sensor display, targeting locks appeared on every hegemony vessel. Thousands of human weapons were now pointed at his fleet. But Kethvar was not worried. His shields could absorb enormous amounts of damage. His armor could withstand planet crackers. These humans would learn the hard way that numbers meant nothing against superior technology. Fire a warning shot. Chen ordered someone off-screen. A single beam of energy lanced out from the nearest human warship. It struck the shield of a hegemony escort vessel. The alien captain of that ship had time to smile before his shield collapsed completely. The beam continued through the ship's armor as if it were made of paper, cutting the vessel cleanly in half. The escort ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Silence filled the hegemony bridge. Every alien stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Their most advanced shields had been destroyed by a single shot from a human weapon. How? Kethvar whispered. 50 years of studying your technology, Chen replied. We know exactly how your shields work because we built better ones. We know how to penetrate your armor because we designed stronger armor. You showed us your best weapons when you destroyed those other worlds. We simply made better weapons. More targeting locks appeared on the sensor display. Every human ship was now ready to fire. The hegemony fleet was completely surrounded by weapons that could apparently cut through their defenses like they were nothing. You have 59 minutes to begin your withdrawal, Chen said. If you are still in our space when that time expires, we will consider it an act of war. And if we choose to fight? Kethvar asked, though he already knew the answer would terrify him. Chen's smile returned, but this time it was the smile of a predator looking at cornered prey. Then you will discover why humans spent so long studying the art of war while you believed we were just entertainment. Broadcasts. The transmission ended, leaving the hegemony fleet alone in space, surrounded by an enemy they had never seen coming. For the first time in 300 years of conquest, Admiral Kethvar faced a species that was not begging for mercy. Instead, they were offering him a chance to run. Admiral Kethavar stared at the tactical display, his four hands clenched into fists. Around his ship, thousands of human warships waited in perfect formation. Their weapons were locked onto his fleet. Their message was clear, but accepting it would mean admitting that everything he believed about hegemony superiority was wrong. "Sir," Commander Vexta said quietly, "perhaps we should consider their offer." "Never." Kethavar's voice was hard as metal. "We are the hegemony. We do not run from primitive species. We do not negotiate with inferior races. One lucky shot does not make them our equals." He turned to face his bridge crew. Every alien officer was watching him, waiting for his decision. Some looked frightened. Others seemed uncertain. But all of them were looking to him for leadership. "These humans think they can frighten us with numbers and tricks," he announced. "They destroyed one escort ship and believe they have won. But we carry world killers. We have conquered 43 civilizations. We will not be intimidated by apes who learn to build starships." "But sir," the tactical officer said nervously, "their weapons penetrated our shields completely. If they can do that to all our ships—" "They caught us by surprise," Kethavar interrupted. "Now we know what we face. Raise all shields to maximum power. Charge all weapons. We will show these humans what happens when they threaten the hegemony." Despite their fears, the crew followed orders. Across the fleet, alien warships powered up their most devastating weapons. Shields strengthened to maximum capacity. Planet crackers hummed with deadly energy. The 12 ships of the hegemony prepared to teach humanity a final lesson. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "Admiral Chen is transmitting again." "Ignore him," Kethavar ordered. "We are done talking." But Chen's voice came through anyway, broadcast on all frequencies. "Admiral Kethavar, our sensors show you are powering weapons. This is your final warning. Stand down and withdraw or face the consequences." Kethavar grabbed the communications microphone. "The only consequence will be your destruction, human. You may have surprised us once, but now you face the full might of the hegemony. Prepare to join the 43 worlds that challenged us before you." "43 worlds that never saw you coming," Chen replied. "We have been watching you for 50 years. We know your tactics. We know your weapons. We know your weaknesses. And unlike those other worlds, we were ready." "Enough talk," Kethavar roared. "All ships open fire. Destroy them all." The hegemony fleet attacked with everything they had. Planet cracker beams lanced out toward the human ships. Quantum torpedoes streaked through space. Energy weapons that could boil oceans fired at maximum power. For a moment, space blazed with deadly light as the most powerful fleet in the galaxy unleashed its fury. Then the human ships fired back. What happened next would be remembered as the shortest battle in galactic history. The human weapons were unlike anything the hegemony had ever seen. Beams of coherent energy that moved faster than light itself. Missiles that seemed to phase through solid matter. Defensive systems that absorbed the hegemony's most powerful shots and redirected them back at their targets. Kethavar watched in growing horror as his fleet was torn apart. The first salvo from the humans destroyed 6 ships completely. The second salvo crippled 4 more. His own flagship shuddered as human weapons struck its shields, draining them faster than they could recharge. "Impossible," he screamed. "Our technology is superior. Our weapons are the most advanced in the galaxy." "Your weapons are 50 years old," came Chen's voice over the communication system. "We have spent 5 decades improving on your designs while you rested on past victories." Another wave of human fire swept through the hegemony formation. More ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Others tumbled through space, their hulls cracked open and their crews exposed to vacuum. "Sir," shouted the tactical officer, "we have lost 8 ships. The others are heavily damaged. Our weapons are having no effect on their defenses." Kethavar looked at his display and saw the truth he had refused to accept. His mighty fleet, the terror of 43 worlds, was being destroyed by an enemy that made his most advanced technology look like children's toys. "How did they advance so quickly?" he whispered. "Because we had teachers," Chen answered, somehow hearing his question. "Every world you destroyed, every ship you lost, every battle you fought, we were watching and learning. We studied the wreckage from Kepler 4e42. We analyzed the tactical records from your previous conquests. We spent decades understanding exactly how you fight so we could build weapons to counter every strategy." The hegemony flagship shook again as more human weapons found their target. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Damage reports flooded in from all sections. "But more than that," Chen continued, "we learned from your mistakes. You conquered through fear and superior technology. You never faced an enemy that was prepared for you. You never fought a species that had time to study your methods and develop countermeasures. 3 more hegemony ships exploded under concentrated human fire. The survivors tried to retreat but found their escape routes blocked by perfectly positioned human vessels. We also learned something else from studying your conquests, Chen said. We learned that you show no mercy to defeated enemies. You give no quarter to those who surrender. You destroy entire civilizations to make examples for others. Kethavar's blood ran cold as he realized what that meant. You gave us 72 hours to surrender or face annihilation, Chen continued. You showed us images of dead worlds to demonstrate what happens to species that resist you. So let me ask you this, Admiral. Why should we show you more mercy than you showed to 43 other civilizations? The communication channel filled with new voices. Human commanders from across the fleet began speaking, and Kethavar realized they were broadcasting the names of destroyed worlds. Kepler, 442. Population 12 billion, completely destroyed. Glisa 518. Population 8 billion, all life extinguished. Wolf, 359. Population 15 billion, turned to radioactive. Ash, the list went on and on. 43 worlds, hundreds of billions of lives, all ended by the hegemony's weapons. Every one of those worlds had families, Chen said quietly. Children, lovers, dreams for the future. You ended all of that because they refused to kneel before you. More hegemony ships died under the relentless human assault. The survivors found themselves herded together by the enemy fleet, trapped with no way to escape. But unlike you, Chen continued, we are not monsters. We offer you one final chance. Surrender now and we will spare the lives of your crews. Continue fighting, and we will give you exactly the same mercy you gave to those 43 worlds. Kethavar looked around his bridge. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His ship was dying around him. His fleet had been reduced to burning wreckage in a matter of minutes. For 300 years, the hegemony had been the hunters. They had stalked weaker species across the galaxy, destroying any who resisted their rule. They had believed themselves invincible. Now they were the prey, surrounded by predators who had learned to hunt by watching the masters. Sir, Vexta said weakly, blood running down her face from a head wound. We should surrender. Kethavar closed his eyes. His career was over. His fleet was destroyed. His empire's reputation for invincibility had been shattered in less than an hour. But his crew was still alive. The few surviving ships still had thousands of alien souls aboard them. All ships, now he broadcast on the fleet frequency, his voice broken with defeat. Cease fire. Lower shields. Prepare to surrender. The human weapons stopped firing. Space fell silent except for the crackling of burning ships and the hiss of escaping atmosphere. A wise choice, Chen said. Prepare to be boarded. Your surviving crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Laws that your species apparently never learned. As human boarding parties approached the shattered remains of his fleet, Admiral Kethavar realized that everything had changed. The age of hegemony dominance was over. The hunters had finally met something that hunted back, and humanity had been preparing for this moment far longer than anyone had suspected. 6 months after the battle in Earth's solar system, Admiral Chen Wei stood on the observation deck of the TDF Prometheus, humanity's newest and largest warship. Through the massive, transparent aluminum windows, he watched the liberation of Kepler 442b, the first world to be freed from hegemony control. Below the ship, the planet's surface sparkled with lights as cities came back to life. The Kethlari people, survivors of the hegemony's brutal occupation, were celebrating their freedom. Their purple skin and elongated limbs made them look delicate, but Chen had learned they were incredibly resilient. They had survived 50 years of slavery and still maintained their culture, their hope, and their dreams. Sir? Came a voice behind him. Chen turned to see Commander Sarah Torres, his tactical officer, approaching with a data pad. We've received responses from 17 more systems. They want to join the coalition? Chen nodded and took the pad. The list of species requesting membership in the new Terran coalition grew longer every day. Word of humanity's victory over the hegemony had spread across the galaxy faster than the speed of light itself. Worlds that had suffered under alien oppression for decades were rising up, knowing that they now had allies who could help them fight back. Any word from Admiral Kethavar? Chen asked. He's still cooperating fully, Torres replied. The intelligence he's provided has been invaluable. We've identified 67 worlds under hegemony control and located their main fleet bases. It had surprised many humans that they had not executed the alien admiral after his surrender. Some had called for his trial as a war criminal. Others wanted him imprisoned forever. But Chen had made a different choice. He had offered Kethvar a chance at redemption. The alien admiral now worked with human forces, using his knowledge of hegemony operations to help plan liberation missions. It was not forgiveness. The crimes against 43 worlds could never be forgiven. But it was a chance for Kethvar to help undo some of the damage his fleet had caused. He's been particularly helpful with the Vegan system operation, Torres continued. His knowledge of their defensive positions saved us weeks of reconnaissance. Chen smiled slightly. The liberation of Vega had been their most challenging mission yet. The hegemony had fortified the system with massive orbital weapons platforms and a fleet of 200 warships. But human forces had learned much from studying alien technology. They had developed new tactics, better weapons, and most importantly, they had allies. The Kethalari had provided detailed maps of hegemony installations. The Altarians had contributed their expertise in electronic warfare. 3 other liberated species had offered ships and crews to join the assault. When the coalition fleet arrived at Vega, it was not just humans fighting the hegemony. It was a united force of 6 different species working together. The battle had lasted 3 days, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Hegemony forces that had expected to face primitive humans instead found themselves fighting a combined fleet using tactics they had never seen before. The orbital platforms fell first, their shields overwhelmed by coordinated strikes from multiple species. The hegemony fleet tried to retreat but found their escape routes blocked by fast attack squadrons that hit them from unexpected angles. The Vegans are requesting a full technology exchange, Torres reported. They want to upgrade their defenses in case the hegemony tries to retake their system. Approved, Chen said immediately. Make sure they get everything they need. And send them a construction team to help rebuild their orbital infrastructure. This was the part of liberation that Chen found most rewarding. It was not enough to simply defeat the hegemony forces and leave. True freedom meant helping these worlds rebuild, giving them the tools they needed to defend themselves, and most importantly, treating them as equals rather than subjects. The human approach to galactic politics was completely different from the hegemony's methods. Where the aliens had ruled through fear and superior technology, humans offered partnership and mutual cooperation. Where the hegemony had demanded tribute and obedience, the coalition encouraged independence and self-determination. Sir, Torres said, consulting her datapad again, we've also received a message from Earth. The President wants to know when you'll be returning for the annual Coalition Summit. Chen considered the question. The summit would bring together representatives from 37 liberated worlds to discuss trade agreements, defense pacts, and coordinated exploration missions. It was exactly the kind of galactic community that humanity had hoped to build. Tell the President I'll be there in 2 weeks, he decided. We just have one more stop to make. An hour later, the Prometheus and its escort fleet departed Kepler 442 and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Their destination was a system on the edge of what had once been hegemony space, a place where something unprecedented was happening. When they arrived, Chen smiled at what he saw waiting for them. 47 ships hung in space around a small, unremarkable planet. But these were not human vessels or ships from coalition worlds. They were hegemony ships, but they flew new flags. Admiral Chen, came a transmission from the lead vessel. This is Admiral Zethka of the Free Hegemony Fleet. We are ready to begin the joint operation. The Free Hegemony Fleet was perhaps the most unexpected development in the war against alien oppression. As word of the coalition's victories spread, some hegemony officers had begun to question their own government's methods. Small groups of ships had defected, bringing with them intelligence about hegemony operations and a desire to help liberate the worlds they had once helped conquer. Admiral Zethka had been one of the first to switch sides. Her fleet of 50 ships had arrived at Coalition space 3 months ago, requesting asylum and offering to fight against their former allies. After extensive interviews and psychological evaluations, the Coalition had accepted their offer. Status report, Admiral, Chen requested. We have located the main hegemony command base in this sector, Zethka replied. Intelligence indicates they are holding approximately 2 million prisoners from 12 different species. The base is heavily defended, but we believe a combined assault can succeed. Chen studied the tactical data his officers had prepared. The hegemony base was indeed formidable. Orbital weapons, shield generators, and a defensive fleet of 300 ships. But it was also the key to liberating an entire sector of space. All ships prepare for combat, he ordered. Remember, our goal is to free the prisoners and capture the base intact. We need the intelligence stored in their computers. The combined fleet moved toward the target. Human ships advanced alongside vessels from the Kethlari, Altarians, vegans, and 6 other species. Former hegemony vessels flew in formation with their one-time enemies, united by a common cause. As they approached the base, Chen reflected on how much had changed since that day 6 months ago, when the hegemony fleet had arrived at Earth. The aliens had expected humans to beg for mercy. Instead, they had discovered that humanity had been preparing for this confrontation for decades. But more than that, they had learned that humans were not interested in simply replacing the hegemony as galactic overlords. The coalition offered something the galaxy had never seen before, an alliance based on equality, cooperation, and mutual respect. The battle for the command base was fierce but brief. Coalition forces had learned to coordinate their attacks perfectly, using each species' strengths to complement the others. Human technology provided devastating firepower. Kethlari ships used their speed to hit weak points. Altarian electronic warfare disabled enemy sensors. Former hegemony vessels knew exactly where to strike for maximum effect. When the base's shields finally fell and coalition marines stormed the command center, they found something that made all their efforts worthwhile. The prisoners were alive, and among them were representatives from 15 species that had been thought extinct, worlds the hegemony claimed to have destroyed but had actually enslaved. As Chen watched the rescued prisoners being evacuated to medical ships, he realized that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were still millions of beings suffering under hegemony rule. But now they had hope. Word would spread that the age of alien oppression was ending. Standing on his bridge, surrounded by officers from 6 different worlds, Admiral Chen Wei looked out at the stars and smiled. Humanity had joined the galaxy not as conquerors, but as liberators. They had shown that strength without compassion was just brutality, and that true power came from helping others achieve their own freedom. The hegemony had thought humans would plead for mercy. Instead, they had become the galaxy's hope for a better future, and this was only the beginning of that future.